What is synesthesia and how do people live with it? Synesthesia is a way the brain links information from different senses so that one kind of input reliably and automatically triggers another. A person might see a letter and at the same time experience a specific color or hear a musical note and sense a shape or a texture. These added experiences are stable over time and show up without deliberate effort. Someone with letter color synesthesia will usually report that A is the same shade every time. The effect is not a metaphor and not simple imagination. It is a genuine perceptual addition layered on top of the original stimulus. Most people who have synesthesia first notice it in childhood and later learn that not everyone shares it. Researchers describe the triggering stimulus as the inducer and the added experience as the concurrent. In some people, the concurrent feels projected onto the world. For example, a number appears colored on the page, while for others it is vivid but clearly internal. Both styles are considered authentic forms. Synesthesia can take many forms. Common types include grapheme color, where letters or numbers evoke colors, sound color, where tones or timbres call up hues or moving color fields, lexical gustatory, where words evoke tastes, and spatial forms, where days, months, or numbers are laid out in consistent maps in space. Synesthesia is not a disorder and it is not listed as a disease. It does not typically involve loss of contact with reality. People know the added color or taste is created by their own mind and does not belong to the object itself. Prevalence estimates vary because they depend on the definition and the tests used, but researchers agree that a noticeable minority of the population has at least one synesthetic form. Laboratory tests look for the hallmark of consistency. A participant selects the color that matches a set of letters or sounds. After a delay, the test repeats. People with synesthesia make essentially the same matches again with striking precision, while non-synesthetic controls are far less consistent. Brain studies suggest that synesthesia reflects differences in connectivity and communication between regions that process different kinds of information. Structural scans have found increased white matter coherence in some networks, and functional studies show coordinated activity between areas such as visual color regions and symbol processing regions during synesthetic experiences. Two leading explanations have been proposed. One emphasizes cross-activation between neighboring cortical maps, which may persist from early development. The other emphasizes disinhibited feedback that allows signals to travel along pathways that are usually kept quiet. These accounts are not mutually exclusive, and different forms of synesthesia may rely on different mechanisms. Family clustering is common, which points to heritable influences, though there is no single gene that explains all cases. Living with synesthesia can be rewarding and occasionally challenging. Many people find it enriching. Colors or spatial layouts can serve as natural memory cues, making it easier to remember phone numbers, names, or schedules. Musicians may use sound color experiences to recognize keys and chords. Writers and artists sometimes lean on their mappings to develop imagery or structure. At the same time, synesthetic concurrence can compete with learned associations in school or work. If a textbook prints the number 5 in a black font, but the person experiences it as green, the mismatch can slow reading or cause a feeling of friction. In noisy or highly saturated environments, multiple concurrents may arrive at once and contribute to fatigue or distraction. Practical strategies help people manage the downsides while keeping the benefits. Knowing personal triggers allows planning. A student can choose high-contrast fonts and uncluttered layouts to reduce interference. A musician might organize practice so that complex passages are spaced with breaks that let concurrence settle. Some people find simple grounding routines helpful when the sensory load climbs. Slow breathing and brief visual rest reduce arousal and make the added experiences easier to integrate. If synesthesia becomes a source of worry rather than a curiosity, short psychoeducation with a clinician who understands the phenomenon can reduce anxiety. The goal is not to eliminate synesthesia since it is part of the person's perceptual style, but to normalize it and build confidence in handling it. Synesthesia can occur alongside other traits and conditions. Studies have reported higher rates of vivid mental imagery and differences in sensory sensitivity among synesthetes. Some report more frequent migraines or stronger reactions to certain stimuli. These patterns are group trends and not fixed rules. No single profile captures everyone. Importantly, most people with synesthesia function well in school, work, and relationships. They often come to view their mappings as a neutral feature or even an advantage. What is prosopagnosia and how does it change your life? Prosopagnosia is a neurocognitive condition that disrupts the ability to recognize faces even when eyesight and general thinking skills are otherwise normal. A face can look vivid and detailed, yet the brain does not link it to a known identity. Some people do not recognize their own reflection. There are two main forms. Acquired prosopagnosia follows brain injury such as stroke, head trauma, infection, tumor, or degenerative disease, most often when the right fusiform gyrus or anterior temporal cortex is affected. Developmental prosopagnosia begins early in life without obvious brain injury and often runs in families. Human face recognition relies on a network of brain areas that work together. The occipital face area supports early analysis of facial structure. The fusiform face area along the lateral fusiform gyrus helps encode stable identity across changes in lighting, viewpoint, and hairstyle. The posterior superior temporal sulcus tracts, moving social signals such as gaze and expression. Anterior temporal regions link a face to the knowledge you hold about a person, including their name and history. When these regions are damaged or develop atypically, people lose the rapid, holistic processing that normally lets us know who we are looking at within a glance. The condition reshapes daily life most clearly in social settings. Friends, colleagues, and even close family may go unrecognized if they appear out of context or after a small change in appearance. People with prosopagnosia may hesitate to greet others, introduce themselves repeatedly to the same person, or mistake a stranger for someone they know. These slips are often misread as rudeness or indifference. The constant effort to avoid mistakes creates anxiety and social fatigue, and some people begin to limit activities that involve crowds, dim light, or fast-moving interactions, where compensatory cues are harder to use. Everyday tasks require extra planning. Meeting a partner at the airport becomes stressful if you cannot pick them out of a stream of travelers. Picking up a child after school is difficult when many students wear the same uniform. Films and television can be confusing when characters look similar, so people may favor shows where voices, costumes, or accents clearly distinguish roles. Even photo collections can be tricky because identifying who is pictured depends on labels or context rather than on the face itself. None of this reflects a lack of care for others. It reflects a specific bottleneck in recognizing identity from faces. Many people build effective strategies that shift attention away from faces and toward other cues. Voice qualities and speech rhythm, body shape and posture, gait, typical clothing and accessories, distinctive marks or scars, and the places where meetings occur all become essential. Clear routines help. Asking contacts to say their name when approaching, choosing a conspicuous meeting point, arranging a unique jacket or scarf, or sending a brief voice note before entering a crowded space reduces uncertainty. Smartphones can help by storing labeled photos of new acquaintances and by keeping notes that link names with reliable non-facial cues. Work and school settings benefit from simple accommodations. Roles that depend on rapid identification can be challenging, including teaching, customer service, clinical care, and security. Name badges, seating charts, and short self-introductions at the start of meetings reduce pressure. Students do better with stable groupings, explicit roll calls by voice, and clear labels in online classes. Remote meetings create their own hurdles when name tags are small, so pinning participant labels or using platforms with prominent names improves access. Safety also matters. Verifying a delivery person or recognizing an imposter is harder, so procedures that rely on names, codes, or identification cards are valuable. Diagnosis is built from history and formal testing. Clinicians first rule out low vision and broad memory disorders, then use standardized tasks that challenge face learning and discrimination while comparing performance with object recognition. Widely used tools include the Cambridge Face Memory Test and the Benton Facial Recognition Test. In acquired cases, brain imaging can reveal lesions in right ventral occipitotemporal or anterior temporal regions that fit the behavioral profile. Many people with the developmental form remain undiagnosed until adulthood, when they discover that others do not experience the same difficulties and seek evaluation. There is no established cure, but daily functioning can improve. Training programs can build a bank of highly familiar faces and increase efficiency with specific features, though gains often remain limited to the faces that were practiced. Psychological support helps reduce social anxiety and self-blame, and coaching can guide disclosure so friends, colleagues, and teachers know how to help. Thoughtful environmental design also matters, including good lighting, consistent seating, clear signage, and name labels in shared spaces. Children benefit from predictable routines at school and from educators who understand the condition and provide structured support. Prosopagnosia is not simple forgetfulness or shyness. It is a selective impairment in face recognition that can coexist with strong memory for facts and voices. It can occur alongside autism spectrum conditions, stroke, or dementia, yet many affected people are otherwise healthy. With accurate understanding, practical strategies, and supportive communities, people develop reliable ways to manage everyday life, maintain close relationships, and thrive at work and school. What happens in the mind of someone with total amnesia? Total amnesia is best understood as a collapse of the brain systems that bind experiences into lasting episodes while leaving other mental abilities remarkably intact. People with this condition usually lose the capacity to form new autobiographical memories from the moment the injury or illness occurs, a pattern called profound anterograde amnesia. Many also lose access to some memories from before the onset, known as retrograde amnesia, and this loss tends to be stronger for recent events than for distant ones, a gradient observed across many clinical studies. The structures most often implicated are the hippocampus and neighboring medial temporal lobe regions, as well as connections through diencephalic hubs such as the thalamus and mammillary bodies. These regions work like a binding and indexing system, linking sights, sounds, places, feelings, and the order of events, so that an experience can later be replayed as an episode. When the system is damaged, the stream of life still flows, but it fails to cohere into records that can be retrieved later. Inside the person's moment-to-moment experience, perception, attention, and working memory can feel normal. They can hold a phone number for a short span, follow a brief conversation, or keep track of steps in a simple task as long as attention is uninterrupted. Language, intelligence, and many aspects of reasoning remain functional, which is why conversation with someone who has amnesia can seem smoother than one might expect. The breakdown emerges across delays longer than the limited buffer of working memory. After a pause, a distraction, or a change of room, the thread of the episode is gone. The person can repeat the same questions because each answer fails to lay down as a new stable memory, and the present becomes an ever-refreshing now. Not all memory systems fail equally. Emotional learning often continues through amygdala circuits, so people with amnesia can show appropriate emotional reactions to cues even when they cannot explain why. Habit learning and skills can be preserved because they depend more on basal ganglia and cerebellar networks than on the hippocampus. With practice, a person may get better at a motor task or a routine, and later perform it smoothly while denying any recollection of the practice sessions. This divide between knowing how and remembering that is a hallmark of the condition and has been documented in classic case studies and modern experiments. Semantic knowledge, the store of facts and word meanings, is more variable. If damage occurs after a lifetime of learning, much of this knowledge survives, though gaps appear for people, places, and events tied closely to personal experience. When the injury happens early or is severe, the acquisition of new factual knowledge can be slow and incomplete because it too depends on the mechanisms that build stable representations. The sense of self changes in specific ways. People generally retain core personality traits, preferences, and moral values that developed over years, evidence that aspects of identity are distributed and robust. Yet the narrative self, the felt continuity from past through present to future, weakens without a record of recent episodes. Some individuals describe a floating feeling, as if waking repeatedly to a world that looks familiar but lacks a recently written chapter. Orientation to time is especially fragile. Many can anchor to long-established facts, such as the name of a childhood hometown, but struggle to place current events on a timeline, which can produce anxiety or confusion in busy environments. Decision-making is shaped by this altered memory landscape. When choices rely on immediate information and clear rules, performance can be good. When choices depend on recalling prior outcomes across days or combining details from multiple past episodes, performance drops. People may rely heavily on external cues, checklists, and supportive routines. Confabulation can appear in some cases, especially when frontal systems are also compromised, leading the person to fill gaps with plausible but incorrect details without intent to deceive. In pure amnesia, where frontal monitoring is relatively intact, people are more likely to say they do not know. Sleep, stress, and attention influence day-to-day functioning. Deep sleep supports memory consolidation in healthy brains, and disturbed sleep can further erode learning capacity after amnesia begins. High stress and distraction compete with the fragile maintenance of information over short delays, making failures more frequent. Conversely, calm repetition, spaced practice, and structured environments can yield meaningful improvements in real-life independence, even when core episodic learning remains impaired. Importantly, total amnesia does not equal a blank mind. The person continues to perceive, feel, reason, and learn within the channels still available. They can enjoy music, appreciate humor, form emotional bonds, and acquire habits that make daily life smoother. Rehabilitation builds on these strengths by externalizing memory through notebooks, calendars, alarms, and supportive technology, and by training routines until they become automatic. The inner experience remains human and rich, but its continuity relies less on the spontaneous recall of episodes and more on scaffolds, skills, and the enduring islands of identity that the condition leaves untouched. Why do people follow fashion even if they do not like it? People often follow fashion they do not like because clothing works as a social signal, and social signals carry real rewards and penalties. Groups set visible norms about what looks appropriate. When behavior is public and easy to compare, most people lean toward the norm to avoid social costs such as criticism, exclusion, or being judged as incompetent. Studies on conformity show that even small cues from a group can shift how individuals act, and dress is one of the clearest cues. Deviating can threaten a sense of belonging, which people value because inclusion supports well-being, access to help, and a smoother daily life. Clothing also operates as a badge of identity. In schools, workplaces, and neighborhoods, people use style to mark who is in and who is out. Even if someone dislikes a trend, wearing it can affirm membership in a desired circle or reduce the chance of being misread as an outsider. First impressions matter for hiring and promotion, and observers draw quick conclusions about competence and trustworthiness from attire. Because those judgments affect tangible outcomes, many choose the safer route of aligning with current styles. Fashion also helps people manage uncertainty. In complex markets with too many options, copying what most others wear functions as a shortcut that reduces decision effort and the risk of regret. This kind of social learning is common when people are unsure about what will be seen as tasteful, professional, or modern. The higher the potential penalty for getting it wrong, the stronger the pull of the mainstream. Institutions reinforce these pressures. Many organizations have formal or unwritten dress codes, and supervisors often evaluate fit and professionalism alongside performance. Even without explicit rules, teams develop shared expectations. Newcomers learn quickly that clothing that diverges too much can limit influence and opportunities, so they adapt to protect their standing. Access also matters. Retailers stock what sells, and supply chains emphasize current silhouettes, colors, and fabrics. When most stores carry versions of the same trend, the simple act of buying affordable clothes nudges people toward alignment, whether they like the look or not. Fast product cycles and targeted discounts make on-trend items easier to find than classic alternatives, especially for budget shoppers or those with limited time. Media and platforms amplify these effects by creating social proof. Seeing an item repeatedly on peers, celebrities, or influencers increases its perceived normality. Repetition can reduce initial dislike through familiarity, a pattern shown across many kinds of preferences. Even if negative feelings do not flip to liking, they may soften enough that compliance feels acceptable. People also manage their self-presentation strategically. In many settings, the cost of standing out can be higher than the benefit of expressing a personal taste. Some will suppress or hide their true preferences in public to avoid conflict or stigma, and then dress how they prefer in private contexts. This gap between private taste and public display is common when power differences are large, such as between junior and senior staff, or where scrutiny is intense, such as customer-facing roles. Fashion carries status information as well. Knowing and using current codes signals cultural knowledge. That knowledge can grant social capital, smoother interactions, and invitations into networks. For those seeking mobility or acceptance in a new city, school, or profession, adopting the prevailing look is a practical step toward credibility. The effect is especially strong in adolescence when peer approval shapes identity, but adults also feel it during life transitions like starting a new job or moving across cultures. People from minority or migrant backgrounds may adopt local fashion to reduce discrimination or to ease everyday encounters, trading personal taste for safety, efficiency, or opportunity. Psychological comfort plays a role too. Standing out draws attention and increases self-focus, which can feel stressful. Adopting the common style lowers that tension and allows people to direct energy toward tasks they value more, such as work performance or social connection. Sometimes dislike is also mixed with ambivalence. A person might dislike the look but appreciate practical features like fit, durability, or workplace compatibility, which makes compliance feel reasonable. To what extent does advertising control your decisions? Advertising rarely overrides free will in a literal sense, but it reliably shifts the probabilities of what you attend to, remember, and choose. Behavioral research shows that ads work first by capturing attention through novelty, motion, and emotionally charged cues, then by shaping what feels salient when you decide. Repeated exposure boosts liking even when you are not concentrating, a phenomenon called mere exposure, and the effect is stronger when the product is easy to process and when you are multitasking. Ads also prime ideas and goals so that related options come to mind more quickly. When a streaming service places snack brands in upbeat scenes, those cues can heighten craving in later shopping. Branding links products with social identities and norms, and people tend to follow perceived norms, especially under uncertainty. Digital platforms intensify these mechanisms with targeting based on your demographics, location, and past behavior, meaning that the ad you see is chosen because data suggests you are in a moment of heightened receptivity. Algorithms test hundreds of versions of headlines and images, and automatically shift delivery toward the ones that nudge clicks or purchases. So the creative that reaches you is the one statistically most effective for people like you or for you specifically. Timing also matters. Mobile ads often appear when cognitive resources are thin, such as late at night or during commutes, which increases reliance on quick heuristics. Price and promotion messages exploit anchoring by presenting a high reference price first, making the sale price feel like a gain. Scarcity framings increase perceived value by signaling popularity or limited supply. Social proof cues such as star ratings and influencer endorsements reduce perceived risk and increase confidence that a choice is acceptable. Even disclosures rarely erase the influence because the mind updates beliefs, but keeps the emotional tag attached to the brand. Neuroimaging and psychological studies show that brand cues can change experience taste, pain relief, and reward signals, which means advertising can shape not only expectations, but also the way products are felt during use. Still, the size of these effects depends on the category, the person, and the context. Ads are most powerful when choices are low stakes, differences between options are small, and you rely on habit or autopilot. They also bite harder when you are tired, stressed, hurried, or distracted, because reflective control is reduced and you depend more on fast impressions. In higher stakes decisions such as health or finance, well-informed consumers can dilute ad influence by consulting independent reviews, seeking second opinions, and using checklists that force attribute-by-attribute comparisons. Regulation and platform policies also limit the scope of manipulation by restricting deceptive claims, requiring clarity in sponsored content, and curbing targeting that exploits sensitive traits such as age or health conditions. Yet even with safeguards, advertising reshapes the choice environment by determining which options you see and how they are framed. Search ads and sponsored results alter the order in which options appear, and people choose from the first screen far more often than later pages. Loyalty programs and personalized offers steer behavior through immediate rewards that exploit present bias, which favors smaller, sooner benefits over larger, later ones. Retargeting keeps a product top of mind after a visit, raising the chance of conversion not by forcing a choice but by maintaining availability in memory. Another reason is habit and cue response reinforcement. Retail displays and app layouts place brands at eye level or insert one-click buttons. Though these are not ads as such, they are paid placements that mimic the effects of advertising by coupling cues and actions. Over time, the loop of cue, routine, reward becomes automatic, and ads that remind you of the cue can restart the loop. Children and adolescents are especially susceptible because self-regulation and advertising literacy are still developing, and exposure to food, alcohol, and gambling promotions is linked to earlier initiation and higher consumption. Official guidelines in many countries restrict such advertising in certain media or times of day for that reason, though enforcement and online spillover vary. At the same time, consumers are not blank slates. Counter-persuasion works when people learn to recognize common tactics, such as urgency language, social proof badges, and framing around limited time deals. They adjust expectations and become more resistant.
If you'd like to discover more fun facts, we invite you to our playlist, where you'll find hundreds more. Thank you for being here and for joining us on this exciting journey through the human body. See you soon!